Welcome to Tech Talk Tuesday, brought to you by Idaho Public Television and Montana PBS.
Hi, welcome to Tech Talk Tuesday. This month in March, we are talking about virtual experiences and helping kids connect to people and places using digital tools. I'm here with Andrea Rogers, who's a rock star third and fourth grade teacher at Amsterdam School in Manhattan, Montana. And I invited Andrea here to talk to us about a fun activity that can be done in K-12 classrooms called Mystery Location. Andrea's been doing these for quite a few years. Her kids get so much out of it. She's definitely got a lot to share. Welcome, Andrea. How are you today?
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm good.
You bet. So tell us, for those people who may be tuning in that are unfamiliar with this activity, what is a mystery location activity?
Yeah, so a mystery location or a mystery Skype, however you want to call it, is where kids from one classroom connect with another classroom anywhere in the world, and they go back and forth asking yes or no questions and try to guess the location of the other class.
Awesome. So, Andrea, you've been doing these for a while. Why do you do these in your class? Why make the time?
So when I started teaching fourth grade, a big part of our social studies curriculum was the regions of the United States. And for most of my kids, that was a very boring subject for them to engage with. And so I was looking for different options on how I can get them more excited about learning about their country and to understand geography a little bit better. And I found the activity of Mystery Skype. And I was able to connect with a teacher who had been doing it for a while, and we were able to practice back and forth. And that's how I got started.
Mm-hmm. Great. So I think one of the first questions I would ask if I were new to this is, how do you find someone to do this with you? How do you connect to other teachers to start?
Yeah. That was one of my big questions as well. And the best way that I have found to connect with other educators is through social media. So I have found myself connected with a lot of the same educators over the years using Facebook pages. Mm-hmm. So there are Facebook pages dedicated solely for this mystery meeting. There are pages dedicated to people looking for other classes within the United States and teachers looking for classes outside of the United States, so all over the world. There are so many options when it comes to trying to find a class to connect with. As long as you just search mystery meeting or mystery Skype, you're going to come up with something.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we've got our teacher set up. We know we want to teach state geography. You said something about practicing and preparing the kids. So what does that look like?
So before we get to the part where we actually connect virtually with another class, the first steps I do are I teach my students all about where they live. So we learn all about where Montana is located. They have to know their state in order to be able to answer the other school's questions and play the game in a way that's fun for both people. And so we do a lot of studying, a lot of front loading at the beginning of learning just our local geography. And then we kind of expand that to learn more about the United States geography. So the students learn about how to read maps. We learn how to locate the Rocky Mountains, the Appalachian Mountains, the Mississippi River. They learn about the countries that are connected to the United States, the oceans that states might touch. We learn a lot about vocabulary, and how I do that is I have a set of slides that the students work through, and these are the questions that they would be asking other students and the questions that they would be asked from other classes. And so they go through them and they answer them based on their own state. And I can show you a quick example of what those look like. All right. Are you able to see these okay?
Yep.
So the students each get their own copy of this, and we just start with basic states, or basic questions. Does your state touch the Mississippi River? And then the students would look at this, and using a map or an atlas, they would have to first locate the Mississippi River and their state, and then decide, okay, do we touch that? And then they would answer it yes or no. And there's just a series of questions. The Mississippi River. Are you east or west of the Mississippi River? basic geography questions that get them very familiar with the United States and where they are located in relation to these landmarks and features. And once the students get through those, then we are almost to the point where we're ready to play.
Great. So it looks like you do a lot of practice and you go through the slides. So then how do you set them up to be successful on the day of? I could see some kids might be really engaged by this, but others might have a hard time staying on task, right?
Yes. So before we play with another class, the first thing we do is I split my class into 2 groups and we go into different classrooms and we pretend, so we draw a state out of a bag. So it's not Montana, it's completely random. And they get to play against each other. And the competition element is really what really motivates most of the students. So especially in that smaller group setting where there's maybe 5 to 7 kids in each group. And that's how we kind of get the ball rolling on that engagement piece. And so once they play that first time, they are so excited because they want to be the class that guesses first. And once we get to the point where we're actually playing with another class, I had found that the best way to keep all students engaged was we work in teams. So my class just works out perfectly where each student is in a group. Each group has 2 students in it, and each student is responsible for a job. So there's somebody who's doing Google research. So one of them has their Chromebook open. One of them is in charge of the map. And then if there's ever like a student who might need something a little bit different, I've had somebody who is in charge of recording the questions that are asked on the board, marking off yes or no's. They keep track of who's coming up next to ask the question. So if you give everybody a job and everybody has some buy-in in the project, then it's really easy to keep everybody engaged.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So I'm hearing lots of practice, giving everybody a job,
Yes.
making sure that's meaningful and connected to the activity. What other pro tips would you share with a teacher just getting started with this?
Yes. So we talk a lot about professionalism before we get started. So we have a lot of practice on when you're in front of the camera, what would be appropriate behavior, what would be distracting behavior, what would make the game fun for the other class, what would make the game fun for us. And having those conversations beforehand is a really good activity for the students because a lot of them don't realize if they come up and do a silly face in the camera that might be distracting for both classes and kind of take away from the activity. And then after every Skype, whether it's our first Skype or we've done 20 Skypes, we meet at the end of each game and we reflect what went well, what kind of questions were great, what could we change next time to be more efficient? Was there anything that we saw the other class doing that we might want to do next time? And having those reflection opportunities have really helped the kids grow in the activity. So it's not just the same every single time. Every single time they're getting better. Their questions are getting more advanced, or they're asking more critical thinking type questions. So
yeah,
having that reflection.
So when you've done a lot of these, I think you said you've done about 15 this school year alone. What do you see your students learning as a result of doing this compared to how you used to teach about the states?
Oh yeah, my kids can tell you anything about a map of the United States. So if you were to ask them, what states do you border? Immediately they could name off all the states that Montana borders. They know the nearest ocean. They know it's actually really surprising when they come into your class and you realize that they don't know that the United States is connected to 2 different countries, or how to name the regions, or use a compass rose, or just how to look at a map. It's all foreign to them. And by the time we're done with this activity, they do have a little bit more insight on how geography in the United States matters and how different it is in each region of the United States, because they get to see and ask questions from other kids too at the end about, where do you live? Tell me more about, the Northeast, or tell me about New York, or whatever it is. And they can compare and contrast how where we live is so much different than where other kids live.
Yeah, definitely. Sounds like it. So what are some of the states that your class is connected with that seemed to be the most interesting to your students?
They loved Florida the best. So
Uh-huh.
in the last few years, we've connected with Florida, and they think it's amazing that some of those schools, the kids get swimming as PE because they have pools
Yeah.
at school. That was one of their favorites. New York, most of the eastern states usually have some type of shocking information to them. So whether it's just the number of students that are in their classes or their schools,
Mhm.
or the number of people that live in their cities usually blows our students away.
Mhm.
They love connecting with, it's really funny, kids want so badly to connect with Alaska.
Yeah.
And when they do, it seems so unique to them.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would say those are probably the most popular so
Mhm.
far.
Well, that's great, Andrea. We really appreciate having you share with us, and hopefully you've gotten some teachers excited and inspired to use Mystery Meeting. And thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.